Hello and welcome to Smaulgld's update on Kazakhstan's gold reserve position for the month of February 2017. Kazakhstan ramps up gold purchases in February. The National Bank of Kazakhstan added 4.354 tons of gold, or 140,000 ounces of gold, to her reserves in February. Gold reserves at Kazakhstan are now a healthy 264 tons, or 8.49 million ounces as of the end of February. Last year, Kazakhstan added 36 tons of gold to reserves, and now Kazakhstan gold reserves rank 21st in the world. Let's keep in mind that Kazakhstan is along the Silk Road, Kazakhstan's in Central Asia, and Kazakhstan is about, depending on what documents you read, between the 12th and 16th, mines the 12th to the 16th most amount of gold in the world, and approximately 40 to 60 tons a year. So it looks like Kazakhstan has started to do what a lot of the Silk Road countries are doing: China, Russia, those out in the east, starting to basically buy up a good portion of their own mining supply and exporting very little and adding that mining supply to the reserves, because it looks like Kazakhstan is on pace this year to add, say, another 40 tons of gold to its reserves. Now that will put it, let's take a look down at the chart here. Now Kazakhstan is number 21 at 264 tons. These are central bank reserves, not necessarily all the gold that happens to be in a particular country. And again, these are the self-reported amounts that are on the central bank's balance sheet. I took these numbers directly from the Kazakhstan central bank's balance sheet, and that's where I got the gold numbers. And then if you look at what they say, they have 8.49 million ounces, or 264 metric tons. That's worth over $10 billion. Now their entire reserve position is close to 30 billion. So they have 36% of their overall reserves in gold. Now one might say that when you have 40% of your reserves in gold, that you have 40% gold backing to your currency. Now remember, we talked about yesterday, there's a difference between having gold on your balance sheet and having it, quote, back your reserve, your currency, versus having your currency redeemable in gold, which is completely different, and also different than just using gold as a form of payment. So what we were talking about yesterday with Russia, China, and the BRICS was setting up a gold marketplace where they can trade for goods and services in gold. And Kazakhstan would be in a good position to do so if it had to or wanted to, having built up a gold position. And also, they're actually probably doing quite well when you mine gold, and you're basically a sovereign profit maker, because you get the gold from your own country, and you turn those your local currency into gold. You basically buy up the local mining supply, and now you've added gold, and then as the price of gold rises or falls, you then keep that amount on your balance sheet. But recently, for Kazakhstan, the good news is that they're managed to boost their overall foreign reserves and their gold reserves by adding a greater percentage of gold to the reserves. Now, Russia only has 16% of their reserves in gold, and the People's Bank of China only has 2%, because China has trillions in reserves on the People's Bank of and only not a few, but hundreds of billions worth of gold. So the amount of gold as a percentage of reserves at the People's Bank of China is low. Now, we've talked about in the past that the country of China, since it is state-run, does have a lot more gold in the country that is not on the People's Bank of China's balance sheet and could easily be put there, but there's really no reason for it to be put there, other than if they, for whatever reason, had to. Now, some people say, well, they might want to back their currency with gold. Not sure why they want to do that. Remember, China is accused of being a currency manipulator. Now, I don't know if that's a good or a bad term, whatever connotations you may get from that. But one of the things about central banks is they don't want to back their currencies with gold. I know a lot of gold bug thinks that's game over and China is going to do this. China is not interested in supporting the gold dreams of the gold bugs. They want to have the same flexibility that any other central bank might want to have, which is to print and to borrow and not be held back from any of their nationalistic goals because they're stuck with some type of ratio to gold, or they have to keep a certain amount of gold as a percentage of reserves. I don't know where the notion has come from that somehow China is this paradigm of prudence. Just because they have gold doesn't mean they believe in, quote, sound money. They believe in free markets. They don't. And you can argue that the United States doesn't either. But that doesn't make China a paradise of free market, sound money behavior. Now, Russia, on the other hand, does have a bit more of the sound money concept as far as their central bank monetary policies are. They do have a larger percentage of gold as a percentage of reserves, and they also run close to a balanced budget. So there is a difference between, and China just like manufactures a lot of its growth. It builds ghost cities. So I'm not quite sure with this concept that China is to somehow be admired as a country that's going to end the shenanigans. They have their own shenanigans going on, and they'll continue to have them going. It's part and parcel of a state-run economy. In any event, I think that's about it. Let's take a look, though, at the chart. You can see these better on the website. But there's Kazakhstan, which has done a good job. And now remember, Kazakhstan's also part of that Central Asian area. All the countries end in Stan. Uzbekistan, which is also a top 20 gold producer. Kyrgyzstan, whose central banker wants every citizen to own at least a few ounces of gold. So that whole Silk Road area is very gold-minded. And you could see Kazakhstan is moving up. And if you want to see here, let's just take a look here. What Kazakhstan has to do to get itself into the top 20, it's got to catch Austria. It's got to get to 280. It's right now at 264. So I would say by the end of the year, they'll probably crack the top 20. And I wouldn't expect any of these countries to be adding any gold. We haven't seen Western banks add gold to reserves for decades. In fact, Canada has sold all of its gold. Switzerland sold 60%. The UK has sold gold. Look at the United Kingdom. They're all the way down. Only in the top 20. They used to have a lot more gold than that. So thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe to Smaulgld. I would subscribe to Smaulgld before you subscribe to the YouTube channel, but it's a lot easier to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's just a click of the button. But you never know whether Smaulgld will be on YouTube either because of my choice or their choice, but I should always be on Smaulgld. So fill in your email address and you can stay in contact that way.